Same for the new monster base, which is now the overhaul or recreation of the SC88 synth base. And here in Polyphone, here it is, because in Polyphone. So now, when it comes to Colombo GMGS2 sound font, in its latest versions, I had to load them on Polyphone, because this is why every new sample that you import in Colombo GMGS2, every new sample doesn't apply to the old samples, but when it comes to new samples, though, you import new samples to Colombo GMGS2, and in Vienna, you see, Vienna is like this. Here we go again, Vienna. UNK with two question marks when it comes to Vienna. And this is the only thing that is left in Vienna. Now polyphone is like this, so therefore but if you import samples in Vienna, though, they still load in Vienna, they still load there, and this also load in polyphone and still load. This is why. If you import samples in Vienna, then of course it still loads in Vienna. Of course, you imported them there. You imported them in Vienna, and therefore it loads in Vienna. It loads perfectly. But this, because when it because this is probably imported in polyphone and only loads in polyphone and not Vienna. So therefore, this is why. But only applies to this sound font. For example, another sound font which is Apollo GMGS. I'm not sure if samples are imported in polyphone, but all the samples, though, they still load perfectly in Vienna. They still work perfectly in Vienna in Apollo GMGS sound font. This is why is Apollo GMGS sound font. Not sure if they are imported in Polyphone Vienna or another editor, but still they load perfectly everywhere. Vienna and Polyphone. And now, in fact, I'll show you. Here is Apollo. For example, this is the grand piano. And still the samples are I'm not sure if they are imported in Polyphone or Vienna, I'm not sure, but still the samples load perfectly both Polyphone and Vienna. Therefore, this right was Apollo GMGS. But is Colombo GMGS2 sound font? This is the problem. Therefore, and it only in Colombo GMGS2 it only applies to new samples, because the old samples, the old ones still load everywhere, and but when it comes to the latest samples in Colombo GMGS2, that is the issue. And Apollo GMGS, though, in Vienna, it has 10,081 samples. It still loads perfectly. This is right. And there is no sample limit in Vienna and no missing samples. So therefore, and there is no sample limit in Vienna. There is no limit for samples, for imported samples and used samples. So therefore, you can use as many samples as you want in Vienna, and there's no limit. And there's no limit on how many samples you can import on or use, because this, of course, this one, look how many samples, look here, and it still loads perfectly in Vienna. Plus Apollo is also 4 gigabytes.